Sam, what is accountability?
Oh, first of all, Steph, thanks for having me on, and thanks for putting this together. The opportunity to share and learn and grow, because more than ever, this is a time when we need to be growing ourselves and we need to be growing our people. That's what it's going to take to work through difficult and challenging times. Accountability is keeping your commitments to people. That's it. And the challenge is that we don't quite get that sometimes. Keeping your commitments to people. And accountability always involves people. So if there's going to be accountability in an organization, it's going to be between people. There's going to be a relationship. And what we've discovered, quite frankly, is that organizations that master relationship also master accountability. And organizations that struggle in accountability, they're probably struggling with relationship. The two go hand in hand, but accountability follows relationship. Now, I say that accountability is keeping your commitments to people. We have to define what a commitment is, and that is simply no matter what. It's not a maybe, it's not a if I can, it's not unless something better comes along. It's no matter what. And when we're keeping our commitments no matter what, we build accountability. Now, the trap we fall into, Steph, is we think of commitments as showing up at 9, getting the report done by 12, like we said, taking the garbage out, whatever our responsibilities are. But those are simply that. Those are responsibilities. We're accountable to people. We're responsible for things. And so our list of job activities, our job description is nothing more than a list of responsibilities. But accountability is between me and you. It's between people. And so when someone says, I'm going to hold someone accountable, that's like putting a gun to their head. Nobody wants that situation. Leaders today need to help their people be accountable. Leaders today need to come alongside their people through a relationship. And it's through that relationship that they actually inspire their people to be accountable.
Sam, I want you just to touch on that topic again of holding people accountable, because you've whiplashed me a few times in the past when I talk about holding people accountable. Unpack that for us just a bit more, please.
Okay, so, the real problem in our organizations today is not the people. The real problem in our organizations is how we as leaders see our people. Everything we've been taught about accountability is wrong. Accountability is not a way for leadership to manipulate their people to try and do more. Accountability is leadership standing up first and foremost and taking the responsibility to create an environment, a culture that inspires their people to want to be accountable and to want to be their best. Now, when leaders take this on, when they realize that it starts with them, then they start to see their people differently, they treat their people differently, they commit to their people differently, and they get a different result. And so it's about creating an environment, a culture, as you know, because we both work closely, we work together in this arena of culture, organizational culture. It's the culture that inspires accountability. And it's not someone marching into your office and saying, I'm going to hold you accountable. You better get your job done. I mean, that might work this morning until noontime, but after that, it wears off. If we inspire people to want to be accountable, then they will go beyond anything that we could try and coerce them into doing.
Sam, I'm starting to get it. You mentioned, speaking right now, you mentioned, and folk, I'm off screen from time to time. I'm driving a laptop, which is to the side over here. I've just posted Arthur's link for you if you want to connect with Arthur on ramping up your remote presenting skills. Sam, you mentioned now us working together. A quick comment on that. So my business partner, Steve Simpson, and I have been doing culture work for the last 20 years together. And as you know, Sam, as you well know, seeing as you are now partnering with us on that platform, our construct for workplace culture design is UGRs, unwritten ground rules, people's perception of this is the way we do things around here. I'm not going to speak to that right now. For everyone out there watching, you can go to my personal YouTube channel, Stef du Plessis on YouTube, and you will see all of the interviews that we've run on this platform, while South Africa's Best Speakers is bringing you these sessions Monday mornings at 10, Wednesdays at 3, Fridays at 10 South African time. Go and look there for the sessions that we've already done with Graham Codrington and also with Steve and I, as well as some others. Sam, you spoke about leaders not holding their people accountable, but raising them to a level where they are accountable. So talk to us about how leaders can create a culture of accountability in their organization. And Sam, focusing on our current, the situation we find ourselves in now. Speak to us about that.
Well, accountability now more than at any time is the answer to many of the challenges that we face in our business. This is what's going to pull us through. And so accountability is embedded in that culture. So what happens is this. It's about a leader keeping commitments to people. And what I differentiate between is the tactical commitments and the relational commitments. So the tactical commitments, like I mentioned, are those things that we do: getting the report done, sweeping the floor, closing the deal, turning in your paperwork, all that tactical stuff. Now, what we've discovered is that a lot of leaders focus on the tactics of the business, and they'll put as much as 95% of their time, some even 100, focus on the tactics. And this is where the challenge comes, because there's the relational side of the business. And if we're not spending at least 50% of the time on the relational side of the business, we are going to come up short. Now, there's leaders that'll say, oh, I don't have time to hold my people's hands. Well, I'm not talking about holding your people's hands, but what I am talking about is building relationships with people, because this is, in business, it's all about people. And then we see those leaders, Stef, that they make these weird statements, and I don't know where they come from. It's like, oh, you've got to earn my trust. Well, if I have to earn your trust, and I know you don't trust me, and if I know you don't trust me, then you can pretty much be as certain that I don't trust you. And then the leader that says, well, this isn't personal, this is business. Now, that's a really dark hole to go into, because every interaction between people is personal. And so the leader that realizes that personal is important, they work to build relationships. They care about their people, they nurture their people, they grow their people, they lead their people to be their best. And in this process, they make these relational commitments so that they don't have to hold someone accountable. They are, in essence, inspiring them to be accountable, because as leaders, they're being accountable to their people first. It flows through the relational commitments.
Sam, I want to touch on that relational commitment conversation a bit. I want to unpack that from my perspective a bit. And please pick up again if you want to embellish if you want to add on what I'm saying here. So what I've been doing for the last 30 years or so is helping individuals to do, be, and have more, helping leaders to lead more authentically, and working with organizations, helping them to ramp up the way that they do things, to two outcomes. Number one, driving their strategic objectives. And number two, making theirs an even better place to be, where people can bring the best version of themselves to work. So speaking to the relationship part of accountability, just yesterday, I saw two links to videos which I watched. One, a client organization of my own, a global organization, and I work with their with their African contingent, and the other, a US-based enterprise. And in the one video, the US-based enterprise yesterday laid off 100 and something people with a pre-recorded video that was posted on social media, that was not even recorded by the CEO, but was recorded. The voice was the personal assistant to the CEO, in which they lament about how sorry they are to be doing this, but telling people that if they are receiving this video, then they are one of the people affected, and as of end of this week, they will no longer be employed. And I just watched that video and I cringed. And then moments later, I saw a link to the client organization that I'm telling you about, where their CEO, based in Europe, was speaking to employees, to providers, and to clients, and openly addressing to the best level that she could, the issues that are up for conversation now, and admitting the things that she does not know. And that's okay, isn't it, Sam, for leaders to admit the things they don't know?
Exactly. So a question I've been asked several times in the last month is, well, when should I deliver bad news? When should I share this? When should I talk about this? And my answer is always now. Be open, be honest, be transparent. And part of that open and honestness and that transparency is about what we don't know, that we don't have the answers to, that is unknown. Because guess what? You and I, we all face these same challenges. We all have the same fears. We all realize that we don't know everything. We don't have all the answers. And any leader that presents themselves as they have all the answers and they're always right, well, they're not trustworthy. They're not trustworthy by their people, the people they're supposed to be leading. They're not trustworthy by people beyond the scope of those they're supposed to be leading. This is true in business, it's true in politics, it's true in personal relationships. Do I know everything there is to know about leadership, culture, accountability? No. I feel like, do I know a lot? Yes. Well, I'll share everything I have with you. I'll give you everything I have. But you're going to ask me at some point, if this call went on long enough, you're going to ask me a question. Then, Stef, I'm just going to say, you know what? I don't know that I have the answer to that, but I'll get back to you with the answer to that. Let me figure it out. People want their leader to care about them. And this is not a manipulative mood or move. It's not manipulative for leaders to care about their people. It's manipulative when they don't care about their people. And so this caring about people has to be genuine. It has to be authentic. This is not a leadership style. This is a human style. It's a human characteristic. And when you care about someone, you build a relationship. Look at the relationship that you and I have built over time. We've built this relationship because we truly care about each other. We've gotten to know each other. Our families have gotten to know each other. We enjoy spending time together. And as much as we conduct business together, and a lot of business together, it's the personal relationship that drives everything. And the leader that doesn't recognize this is coming up way short.
I want to speak to a couple of things that you've just said, but I want to invite folk to post questions for us, please. You can get more of me on these 3 times a week webinars. So for now, it would be smart to direct your questions at Sam. Post questions. I will pass, I'll discuss them with Sam because I'm keeping an eye on the flow of the questions. Pass those questions maybe personally to me at the bottom of the chat box. If you click on chat, it'll open a panel on the right side of your screen. Click on that and select me, and then post me your questions. Please go for it. Sam, leaders not knowing everything about everything. So for someone who by the end of this year will have 10 hardcover books published that speak to accountability, I would have thought that you sort of know everything about accountability, but yeah, you are telling us that you don't. And yeah, if for 20 years, Steve and I have been focusing on workplace culture, him exclusively for the last 30 years, 25 years, focusing exclusively on cranking up workplace culture, me for the last 20 years working with him, focusing largely on workplace culture, while I continue to focus on employee engagement, personal development, and leadership. We also get that there is so much that we don't get or know about this. And that's why partnerships like the one we formed with you work, because we bringing you into our clients, like I did recently when you were in South Africa, and like you did with me with Rehad, because I get that within the domain of helping organizations to ramp up their culture, and within the context of helping leaders to be more authentic, the truth is that there are volumes about leadership that I just don't know. And if I bring someone like you in to work with these folk, it just changes the entire flow of the dialogue. And the same thing that we're experiencing with me and you working with your client. I can bring some of the nuance of the culture content to it, that together we are truly ramping up the total capacity that we give to these clients. So recognizing that you don't know is not only okay, it is the right thing to do. And you mentioned that it builds trust. I want to add that that of the things I am sure of, that if there is anything that builds trust with people, then it is having a leader that is authentic to the extent that they recognize the things they don't know and can't do, and that when they can, then they do something about that. Any more on that topic, Sam?
Well, and boy, I know there was a question in there. Let's go back to, you referenced the books that I write. And so on March 6th, I finished a manuscript for book number 9, sent it to my publisher. It was in writing that book that I discovered things. And I realized that what I discovered, I needed to go deeper on. And that is what evolves into book number 10. Now, I'm not here to promote books. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, when you focus on something, an area that you really want to be an expert at, you just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And as a leader in an organization, it works the same way. It's leadership skills. There's not just, okay, you do these 5 things and you'll be a great leader. It doesn't work that way. You have to go deeper and deeper and deeper. The goal is, and I tell this to all my clients, and I know you do too, the goal is to be better. That's it. My goal today is to be better than I was yesterday. That's my goal. And my goal next week is to be better than I was this week. And so as a leader in an organization, it's about how do we make ourselves better? Steph, I came off the stage once for a very large international retail organization. And when I came off the stage, the leader came up to me, the CEO, he said, "Wow, great job." And I appreciated that. And then he said, "I'm sure glad we do all this stuff." Now, I realized in that moment that he just totally missed it. Because first of all, it's not about what he does. I have a cultural assessment tool that we look at an organization's culture. We can measure accountability. I knew what was going on in his organization, and I knew he wasn't doing that stuff. But even if he was, his statement should have been, "I really appreciate what you did. Great job," if he felt it was a great job. But then he should have said, "How can we get better? What is it we need to do next? What do my people need to know about to take this message and make it stick?" He wasn't so focused on trying to get better. He wanted to pat himself on the back. So not only was he not trying to get better, he was limiting his people in that minute. He had me there, the expert on the topic that he felt was important in his meeting, and he wasn't leveraging that to help his people grow further.
I quickly want to reach out and say to Steve, that's Steve Simpson. If he's on, I don't have a way of telling that right now. I know that I should be able to, but I just can't. Steve, if you are on, send me a private message or even a WhatsApp. Not only if you are on, but if you are on and able to come into this conversation, and I'll bring you in as a panelist, because Steve has deep and rich insights on some of this beyond what I have. Steve sees nuances about culture in a way that only he gets to see it. And Steve, if you are there, reach out to me. I want to put you on if I can. You said, be better today. Now, I haven't for a while, because for the last 3 weeks, I have probably put in more hours a day, 7 days a week, consistently, than I have put in the last decade, in the last 2 decades, consistently over a 3-week period, every single day. Just trying my best to get out, to continue in a position where we can keep our voice relevant, where we can bring our voice to people. And right now, I am more focused on bringing what we can bring to people for the sake of bringing it to them, rather than pitching and upselling what we can sell them now and what we can sell immediately after this has come to an end. Because if we both know this is not coming to an end, Graham Codrington puts it so well that if we think it's going to get back to normal, it just ain't. There will be a new normal, and that normal is going to be so different. I am on Jacaranda Radio sometime this week, speaking to Amore for the local guys. I'll let you know when that is. And we are speaking about this exact conversation about how we as individuals and leaders can prepare ourselves for what the new normal might be. So let me get to the question that's in there. So I haven't watched...
Please, for all of us, Stef.
I haven't watched much of what Jordan Peterson is saying at this time. In fact, I haven't watched anything of what he is saying at this time. But I resonate with a lot of his message. And I find a lot of what Jordan Peterson says very helpful and meaningful. So I was wondering a while back whether he was a misogynist. And Sharon, who is one of the key people on my team, helped me to understand why he wasn't. But he's big on being better today than you were yesterday. And he warns against competing with other folk rather than trying just to be better yourself. Because if the other guy is better today than he was yesterday, you are just never catching up. But if your measure is to just be better today than you were yesterday, Clive Simpkins comes to mind. South Africans will know him. He was an influential voice for many years here. And he helped me to understand that I should pause before I sleep at night and ask myself, what did I do today that was important, that was meaningful, that contributed? And checking with myself on how what I did today improved where I was previously. And some days you will fail, and then tomorrow you get to do a makeover and you get to start over again. I have a good question that came in here. I just want to find it again. Sam.
What do you do when you have a leader that thinks they know everything?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Talk to that for us.
Great. And here's the thing. For me, and one of those relational commitments is a commitment to live the values. We're really great in an organization of saying these are our values, but then we're not great at living the values. This is what we see. And I know you see it in your work. And so one of those relational commitments is a commitment by the CEO, by the CEO, by the president, by the exec, the owner, whoever that top person is, that I'm asking you to live the values, but I'm living the values first. And I'm going to live them in every decision that I make. And so when you have an owner that's not willing to live the values, when you have an owner that thinks she or he knows everything and they have all the answers, when you have someone in a situation like that, well, the question is, can you lead up and help them see the error of their ways or not? And so this is the number one question I get asked when I'm in front of a group, and the group is, I'm going to say, middle tier leadership, because usually there's someone above them that's not living it. There's someone that's not living the values. There's someone that is, they think they have all the answers, and they're not working on the relational side of the business. And so what I tell them is this: I have two answers. One, the quick and easy answer is, we have two problems in business today. One problem is we don't fire people fast enough. We don't. We don't hire to the values, and when they're not living the values, we don't let them go. Because if you let someone stay in your organization that's not living the values, they are not your values, period. I don't care what anyone says. If you hire me and I'm not living the values, but I'm a big producer and you allow me to stay and you say those are your values, you're a liar. That's the first problem. The second problem in business, we don't fire companies fast enough. Meaning, if I'm working for an organization and the CEO is not living the values and not setting the example, and they think they have all the answers, and they're not using the leadership team to grow the business, then why would I stay there? And I mean, up until just a few weeks ago, we were looking at a situation where unemployment was basically, in the United States, unemployment was basically zero. And at this point, this is a time when you should be looking for an organization to go to work for that has a great leader. Because if enough of us go out and do that, then we send a message to those other oaks, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. Now, that being said, we're working in an organization. We have bills to pay. We can't just quit our jobs. I get that. So the first step is live accountability in your area of control. Live the values. Make decisions around the values. Build relationships with your people. In your area of control, you live it. Then see if that example isn't picked up, because sometimes what happens is people say, oh, look what's happening in Sue's department. Wow, they're amazing. What are they doing that's different? And then when they see that, then they look to change. Some leaders will see the light of day and come around, but a lot that take that attitude that they have all the answers, they're not going to. And ultimately, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you stay at that organization or do you leave? Now, if you're the CEO and you have a senior VP and your senior VP thinks they know everything and they're not treating their people properly, they're not living the values and they're not living the culture that you have designed that for this organization, then you have to coach that person up or allow them to go someplace where that behavior is acceptable. If you, as a leader, allow that person to stay, no matter what their tactical skill set is, you're not living the culture that you know you should be living. And instead of having a culture by design, you have a culture by default. Anything goes.
Sam, I want to pick up with I want to add to this conversation. Of course, there is I want to say a nuanced difference, but it is way more than a nuanced difference. The American market and the South African market, when it comes to dealing with folk who are not living your values, dealing with folk who don't live your values, and for an individual to rather choose an organization where they feel that there will be a better fit for values. Harder in our economy because it works completely differently. Our rules are completely different. But you know that because we speak about this often.
Right. And I hear this everywhere I go, and there's ways to address all of that.
Got it. And I agree with what you're saying. In fact, right. I want to unpack that for a moment. But first, I want to say to Joe Mabena, how's it, Joe? HR Director of Columbus Stainless, previously an anchor client of mine. I saw Joe put up his hand. I don't know what the heck to do about that. If one of my more literate friends would send me a message and tell me what to do about it, or Joe, WhatsApp me quickly. And Joe, if you wanted to, I could pull you in as a panelist and you can ask your question or speak to us for a moment. Joe is super well informed on all of this, runs a seriously committed workforce. And I'm looking, Joe is coming in now and I will hear what he says. Then again, many folk joined us after I made this announcement earlier. Sam Silverstein, my good friend, business associate with whom I work closely now. Sam is in St. Louis in the US. It is 3:30 a.m. there. He got up to do this for us. Sam, I am indebted to you. These folk are indebted to you. And one of the things they can do for you, Sam.
You're indebted to my wife, okay? Because when I got up, I may have woke her. So just get that straight. You're indebted to Renee.
I'm going to say to Joe, choose. If you want to come on quickly, I'm super happy to put you on live. And if you want to rather post your question there, Joe, your call. Sam, 3:30 in St. Louis. Then I got distracted with Joe. I'm going to look at his question in a moment. I quickly wanted to speak to this thing of people who are not a fit. So wherever you are, if you imagine a graph where this is how people behave, this is how they deliver results, this is how they achieve. Someone who is high on behavior, high on performance would be right up there. They'd be the heroes. They'd be the taste makers. They would be the folk who influence others to do the right thing. They would be the folk who pass on what they know, who grow other people, who are the best fit people for organizations. If you are low on performance, there's a reason I'm saying all of this, Sam. If you are low on performance, high on behavior, you're a nice guy up here. And those are the folk who organize the Christmas year-end function, and they will pick you up from the car wash when you drop your car off, and you'll socialize with them from time to time, but they don't deliver. Sam, over here are the hostage takers. These are the folk who put a gun to your head, metaphorically speaking. They typically IT folk or salespeople, and they are really, really good at what they do, but they don't behave well. The guy that is performing exceptionally well in sales sometimes gets everyone in the supply chain in tears twice a week, or they lose you customers through how they behave from time to time, but they think it's okay. And then down here, low performance, low behavior, are the folk who are not a good fit. Those are the people we are talking about, Sam. Those are the folk who either can't or don't want to do what we need to do. Here's why I explained all of this. How we typically behave as leaders, Sam, tell me if you agree with us, is we focus the least time up on these heroes because they are self-sufficient. And what we do is we load them with more work. These folk keep us busy all the time, and we are typically busy with dealing with detail with them that's not necessary. These folk, we let them get away with it. And these folk, we let them get away with not performing because they're our friends. Here's what we need to do, Sam. In the South African context, more so because we are limited with some of the freedoms that you have in your market, here's what we need to do. We need to shift our attention consciously to focus on these people up here and make them feel even better about what they do, but get them to document their work processes and flows so that we can enable more people to do it. Once we've got done that, that's the first thing we do. The next thing we have to do is identify these folk, the folk who are poor fits. They can't or don't want to do what we want them to do. We have to round these folk up, and we have to determine, is it that they can't or don't want to? If they can't, we have to teach them. If they don't want to, they are the wrong fit and they can no longer stay here. Next, we round up these guys. We leave these guys alone and let them be hostage takers. We round up these folk and we get them to understand that we need them because good behavior is more a function of your nature than of your nurture. Long story, but not for now. These folk are good people. They're just not performing. So we have to ramp up their skill, and that's easy to do. You can teach anyone who is willing skills. And when we've shifted some of these folk there, we round these folk up and we tell them enough already. They can't continue to behave the way that they used to behave, and we won't tolerate it anymore. And some of them will leave, and that's okay. I think there's a mechanism to deal with folk who are not fitting in. Sam?
Yes. Now here's how I'm going to address this, because I'm always looking for the edge, and I know we're not perfect, but the reason that situation exists, as you just described, is because we didn't hire properly in the first place. We didn't hire properly because we didn't know what we believe as an organization. We hadn't put the stake in the ground on what we truly believe. Now you can tell me you know what you believe as a leader, but if it's not showing up in your actions and in your organization's actions, then you don't believe it. Action always follows belief. Belief comes first, then action. The reason organizations can't change is because they try to change what they do instead of changing what they believe. If you try to change what you do, you will always go back to your old ways. When you change what you believe, then not only do you change what you believe, but you change what you do permanently and long lasting. If an organization believes that it's about people, if an organization believes that it's about performance, and that's what they truly believe, then they will hire to that and they will fire from that. And the perfect example I have, and I've got a bunch of them, is an organization that's in the construction industry. And in the construction industry, in the 4 markets they're in, unemployment is 0. You cannot hire people. And I have companies, they tell me all the time, oh, I can't afford to fire someone because I can't find enough good employees. The reason you can't find enough good employees is because you don't have a good enough organization. You don't have a good enough culture. And here's this organization where unemployment is 0. And when they have a job opening, they have between 40 and 100 job applicants. 0 unemployment, 40 and 100 job applicants. That's because they are known for their culture. They are known for the kind of organization. This is a home builder that has a waiting list of over a year to buy a home from them. Now, let me put this in context. Steph, I want to book you for a speech tomorrow, okay? And you're going to tell me, oh, Sam, I'd love to speak for you, but I cannot speak for you until towards the end of 2021. This is what it's the equivalent of. They are booked out. Not only that, they can sell their homes for $30,000 US a home more than what they sell them for. And when I asked the president, well, if you have a waiting list for a year and you can sell it for 30,000 more, why aren't you doing that? He says, because we want our homeowners to have equity in the home the day they move in. This is what they believe. And because it's what they believe, it drives their actions. And look how this permeates the organization. When you know what you believe as a company, when you have this nailed down in your values, when you as a leader are living those values, when you value people, and that's at the top of the list, and you build this type of culture, then what happens is you attract the best and you keep the best. And I see too many examples of it in action to ever think that it can't be done. It most certainly can be done.
If you are clear enough on what you believe in senior leadership, the tolerance for bad behavior by subordinate leaders will reduce to zero.
They'll take care of it themselves. They'll weed each other out at that point.
If I believe that my people are important, a leader who does not manifest that in their behavior will not last. The end.
Exactly. But so what happens is we have leaders that are trying to maximize. Here's what it is. They're trying to maximize the bottom line this quarter. They got to get a return this quarter. They need their stockholders to be happy with them this quarter. And so they're making short-term decisions instead of long-term decisions. And so what the leader shouldn't be focused on the task. See, the old model of leadership is the leader's focused on the task, the people are focused on the task. Accountable leadership mandates the leader is focused on the people and the people are focused on the task. Because if you're the CEO and you're worried about the bottom line and that's what you're focused on, well, then you have one person who cares about the bottom line. But if you're focused on me, on the team, then all of us, oh my gosh, our leader cares about us. I would rather die than let him down. We need to come through for him or for her. Now the whole team is focused on the bottom line or whatever the strategic objective is. The whole team is coming together. They're communicating. You have teamwork. You have an openness to change. You have engagement. You have everything that you want as a leader because, here's the thing, you're not 95% tactical. You are now leaning towards the relational side of the business because when you master the technical, it does not impact the relational. But when you master the relational step, and you know this, when you master the relational, then the tactical goes beyond anything you could have ever dreamed of.
Whoa.
Don't get me started.
Whoa. Okay, so a couple of comments quickly. Joe, I saw your question. We will deal with it in a moment. I see somebody's asking, can we post questions? It could mean two things. Folk, post your questions. I see them. And if the question was, can we post the questions for everyone to see them? They should be able to see them. They can only post to panelists. I can't fix that now. It's a learning curve. Sam, it used to be for many years, I've been pursuing I've been in pursuit of perfection in my practice, and we would not launch a product or a new program or something until it was right. And that's why I have often been slow to release. My team and I have decided to be agile. We are releasing and then getting it right. So here I am making rookie mistakes on these webinars, and I'm okay with that because I learn as I go. Somebody will teach me about the posts later. Joe, we will get to your question. Everybody. So Sam was speaking yesterday to a large brand in the States, spoke to almost 1,000 participants online like this. He was doing the leader of this organization a favor, a personal favor by presenting this session. So in exchange, the leader said to the 1,000 folk online, he said, let's light up Sam's social media. And boy, did they light up Sam's social media. So I want to say to all the folk on here, Sam, I was blown away by what folk did. They took photographs with their phones of their notebook, their cup of coffee, their pen. One of the people had owned a copy of each of your books, and they stacked them up next to the laptop. And then they took with their phone a photograph of this with you on the screen, and they sent that to you. And you and I then figured out how there is an awesome application for you with those pictures that were posted. So I'm going to ask everyone on here, light up Sam's social media. Light up my social media on LinkedIn and Facebook. Sam's also on Pinterest. And
no, I'm pretty much, it's LinkedIn, Instagram if you use it.
I said Instagram. I meant Instagram. I'm sorry, Sam.
And YouTube.
Instagram and YouTube. And light up my channels there. Go to YouTube, light up those channels. Go to my Facebook page. Go to my LinkedIn. Go to South Africa's best Facebook page. Light us up. Like us, post for us. And if there are a bunch of you out there that want to turn Sam and me the personal favor this morning of taking a photograph with your phone now and sending it to us or posting it, we would truly appreciate. Like seriously, we would appreciate. And some of the folk even annotated those photographs. I don't even know how they did that. But if you can do that, yeah, that was awesome.
It's because you're not in the age group that understands that technology stuff.
Moving
but that's
right
a
along.
Subject for a different day.
Moving right along then.
Yeah. Somebody asked a question about a book.
Can you hold that for 1 second, not forget? Can you hold that for 1 second, not forget? So everyone can see that we are not limiting South Africa's best speakers to South Africa anymore. I'm reaching out to the folk abroad who I respect the most, thought leaders who I respect the most, and I'm going to be bringing them to you on this platform. So if you go to South Africa's Best, soon you'll see an international channel there. Soon you will see trainers there. And all of us are geared to work with you remotely. All of us are geared to speak to your folk. I've been working with my clients closely over these last days. I've done facilitated conversations. I've done panels. I've spoken to all staff from some companies, just bringing some honest hope and inspiration. There is any number of ways that we can help you during these times. And speaking for myself and many of my colleagues, I am more interested right now in reaching out and paying this forward than I am on upselling or making a buck on this. If I need to work with you in special circumstances, I will. Reach out to me. So SA's Best, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Mondays and Fridays at 10 South African time. Wednesdays at 3. And starting soon, I'm going to run a 7 to 7:45 daily webinar for individuals, helping individuals to cope with the pressure that we feel during those times. Sam, almost back to your question, to your comment about the book, then I'm going to go to Joe's question. Sam, would you be up after the top of the hour, staying online for longer?
Whatever you want, Stef.
And Sam, after that, we are going to not get through all the questions. Keep posting your questions. Sam and I will do a Q&A video of all the questions. We will post it on my YouTube channel, on Sam's media, but definitely on my YouTube channel, and it will be titled the Q&A of this episode of these transmissions. Sam, talk to the book quickly. There was a question about the book.
Oh, somebody asked about a book that would help convey the message, especially with leadership. And I don't know what is easily available in your market or not, but
Amazon
no matter
works.
what,
Amazon
no
works.
matter what is maybe the one to get. I mean, you know, you can go onto Amazon and see what all is out there. But this one talks about the 10 commitments of accountability.
Can we get that on Amazon?
Yes.
Done. Done. And while you at it, folk, light up our social media. That's what you can do for us. I'm going to go to Joe's question, Sam. I'm looking for Joe's question. Joe's question was, was deep, and I don't know how much we'll be able to speak to it, but we're going to give it a shot, Sam. Joe was asking, how do leaders forge a common language? I'm going to say in accountability and culture, in the midst of cultural differences. Now, I can add to that, but I want to start with you, Sam.
All right. Ask the question again. I was looking back to see myself, and I didn't quite hear which.
The question was, how can leaders in organizations where there is a diverse ethnic cultural workforce, how can leaders get a common voice of, I'm going to say, accountability and of culture with a very diverse cultural workforce?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. And so you and I both have experience in working with companies that have multiple locations. I mean, I have clients that 30, 40, 50, 1,000 locations, multinational, where literally, obviously, there's a different culture in Thailand than the culture in South Africa or the United States or Canada or the UK. And so these issues abound, but they can also abound in a small town in the middle of nowhere where we go into, and it turns out that immigrants are being settled into this community. And when we run our cultural assessment with that company, we have it in 20 languages, because in this town in the middle of nowhere, they might need 6 languages. We all believe different things. You can go to the synagogue, the mosque, the church, go wherever you want. And when you sit down in the pew and you look to your right and look to your left, I guarantee you those people believe different things. But what connects us are the values. And when the values are about people, not things, and we're not talking policy, we're talking values, this is what connects people. And this is what will bring people together. And this is what cuts across cultural lines, is values that are about people. Can't stress this enough. When we establish those values in the organization, when we're making every decision based on those values, then people come on board. They live the values. They take the values home with them. They make them better people at home. Their spouses, if it's an amazing set of values, their spouses take the values to their place of business. Your organizational culture not only is inside of your 4 walls, but it goes home with your people. It permeates your community. Your customers know what your culture is. Your suppliers know what your culture is. It's the values that bring people together. And that's how we have to do it across cultural lines.
And they all know that those are your values, not because there's a plaque in the lobby that speaks to your values, but in how, and not because you say that those are your values, but because they witness them in how people behave. So that's the domain that Steve and I work with our clients in, helping people to create environments where everyone behaves in a way that makes it obvious that we live our values. To the extent, Sam, this is how we test if we get it right, that when you are truly living your values, you can employ someone new, not send them on induction, not tell them what the values are, and after they've been there a couple of days, ask them to tell you what the values are. And they will be able to tell you the values that people truly live, that people live at a deep level. Sam, we're going to have to continue with questions afterwards, but here's a good question. With the world changing dramatically as it is now, and probably forever, will the rules and the styles of leadership change? What is going to be the new normal for leadership?
I don't see where our global situation has anything to do with good, or what I would call accountable leadership. I think that everything rises and falls on leadership. Accountability is the highest form of leadership. And at the top of the hour, when we started, you said we need to be relevant for these times. The reason why it's so important right now is, remember, I said accountability is keeping your commitments to people. It's relational commitments. And those relational commitments are not just a commitment to the values, a commitment to the truth, a commitment to your name, a good reputation, a good name, a commitment to sound financial principles, a commitment to stand by you when all hell breaks loose, a commitment to we fail together, we succeed together, but we go there together. When a leader is living these commitments, not because they've said them, these are unspoken commitments, but they're commitments that the leader makes in their heart. They build relationships. Their people come together. Their people want to work harder. They want to try new things. They want to survive. This is an organization that is not only going to do well when times are good, but when times are challenging, this is the organization that's going to accelerate out of those times. They will recover faster. In any economic downturn, there are companies that go out of business and there are companies that set new records, and there's everything in between. And there's a reason why these companies set new records. And you know, in my book, Non-Negotiable, it's about a bank that for the last 30 years, the value of their stock has never gone down. It's only grown. And this is through the Great Recession and everything, the value of their stock went up. And the value of their stock went up because they have a leader that understands that the relational commitments are what drive your business. Anyone can do the tactics. Tactics are abundant. This style of leadership plays in all economies. It plays in all pandemic situations.
It transcends, Sam.
It transcends. Accountable leadership is the highest form of leadership, period.
Steve and I believe, and you know this, Steve and I believe that people will know what their leaders truly stand for and what they truly believe by the questions that they ask.
Sure.
And here's a bit of practical advice for how leaders can shift. Earlier in our conversation, Sam, you spoke about how we perhaps might need to shift what we believe in order to demonstrate the right things. Steve and I believe that you can, that leaders can, that they can go on a conscious journey of shifting some of their workplace beliefs by learning new questions. So here's what leaders ought to do. They ought to ask themselves what the questions are that they most typically ask of their people, then check how those questions direct what it is that they believe, what those questions speak to. And once they've done that, then frame new questions that will get people to know what you really care about most, and ask those questions and ask them all the time. And those questions should be people-centric to start with. Sam, it looks like you picked up a question there.
Nope, I was seeing if there was one, but I didn't see one.
I'm looking for one last one. I'm looking for one last one, and then we'll stay on, and Sam and I will record answers to many of these other questions.
Also, if I could, I just want to share, if you want more information, I literally have in excess of 400 videos on YouTube and on my website, hundreds of articles. The website, samsilverstein.com or beaccountable.com, and the YouTube handle is also Sam Silverstein. So I have a ton of information that's out there for free. It's available. Use it and go on this journey of becoming an accountable leader.
Thank you for that offer, Sam. So in terms of Steve and my own resources, the culture work, dozens and dozens of videos, but at this stage, not available on YouTube, available on our own platform, which we typically in the past made available to clients on a licensed basis. I've said multiple times, we are making that available to folk who need it right now. Reach out to me, go to my website, scroll down, you'll be able to reach me on there. Sam, it is the top of the hour. I think that we are going to wrap this for now, and then we'll take a breather. I'm going to refill my water, and those folk that want to stay on, you are welcome to stay on with us. And Sam and I will answer some more of these questions, which we will publish as a bonus video. Sam, now 4 a.m. in St. Louis, in your home studio, which is looking good, my man, which is looking good.
Thank you. You inspired me.
That's kind of you. Thank you.
I told you, my goal every day is just to get a little bit better. So, you know, you and I were talking
here's a high note for us to end on. I was bewildered by the sudden change of our industry. Those folk watching, like many other industries, our industry, not just our personal practices and businesses, our industry has collapsed. The industry of speaking, training, and education does not exist in its old form today. And I was a little bit bewildered for two reasons. First off, I've always been a live presenter, done 4,000 engagements around the world, but always live. Sam, very much, you've been doing many more videos through the years than I have. But I was also bewildered, Sam, by how my voice would remain relevant, because I abhor a lot of the cheap motivational crap that is going around right now that is harmful and not helpful. And I read a really good article by a trauma psychologist just a couple of days ago, Sam, of how motivational challenges right now are harmful to people. Bullshit like, you should be learning a new skill. Yeah, you should be learning a new skill anyway. That you should be learning a new skill now during lockdown. But Sam, the angle was, if you don't come out of lockdown with new skills in place, then the only one you have to blame is yourself. And motivational challenges like that are not helpful at a time like this. And I was struggling to find my voice, and am still struggling to find my voice, but we'll get there. So the transition was massive and enormous and instant. And Steve, my partner, talked me off, my business partner, talked me off the ledge and got me to refocus. Sam, if you're saying, I'm trying to demonstrate how things happen in the world when you pay it forward. And if you say that my shift influenced the fact that you have the stand-up studio now, look at how we pay it forward, Sam. One leads to the other and to the other, and we can make this wave work. None of us alone, but all of us together. Sam, a last goodbye from you to the folks still online.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us and asking the questions. And let's go back through later, Steph, and address whatever questions are still open. And if anyone has additional questions that they want to send to Steph, or you want to direct them to me at
whichever,
you can, yeah,
whichever.
Either way.
But
and
send them now.
We'll
send them to this chat for now. Send questions to Sam, personal questions to Sam, to him. If there's anything that needs to come directly to me, send it directly to me. I mean, by email afterwards. But for now, post your questions here, then we can address them. We're going to do a bonus segment now for those folks staying on. If you can't stay on, chill. It's going to be on my YouTube channel. Sam, I'm just stepping away and fetching a fresh glass of water. I'll be back in a minute and we'll pick up that bonus channel. For now, everyone who watched, light up our social media channels. Sam Silverstein, Stef du Plessis, and SA's best speakers. Like us, comment, post, upload those photographs. Thanks, everyone. Be back in a moment. Sam, back in a moment. So welcome back, everybody. We've just finished a session with Sam Silverstein in St. Louis. It is now 4:15 a.m. He's been online with me since 2:30 this morning. Sam, thank you for doing that. We had a full hour session now with a whole bunch of listeners, and we ran out of time to answer. We're doing a quick bonus segment. This is it. Sam, hello, and is there a question you want to pick up on immediately that you can recall, or can I find it for you? I'm good to go with the question.
If you're good to go with one, that's fine. How do you measure or develop a metric for businesses to understand a leadership
That's
culture?
exactly the one I was looking at.
But there was another one about further. Well, I think we answered the one about how should people lower down the hierarchy hold their leaders accountable. That's the one that we were talking about before. First of all, it's not about holding people accountable. It's helping people be accountable. And the reality is that you can, if you're middle level, you can give the CEO a great book and say, I read this book. This was amazing. I just wanted to share it. But if you can't shake somebody up and get them to think differently, they're not going to change. And so that goes to the question about the narcissist leader, that narcissistic leader. You know, you can't those people aren't going to change. They're not. They're the way they are for a reason, whatever that reason is. And that's not where I'm going to spend my effort. There's just too many people that are open to realizing that it's about being accountable and not having to be the answer to everything.
Sam, picking up on that, if it is true that how we are behaving now will define our futures, which I believe it is, and if how we treat our employees now will determine their level of trust once we establish the new normal, then how we behave now is more important than ever. However,
Absolutely.
individuals and leaders have been ill-equipped for what's happening to us right now. This has been likened to a war now, and this is a war, and peacetime leaders have not been taught the coping skills for this time. So here's the point, Sam. If you cannot authentically lead your people through this, and if you cannot maintain their trust through this, the thin leaders, the narcissists, the selfish leaders are not going to make it through the new normal, Sam. They will not be able to maintain their leadership role. Do you think that's true?
Of course it is. And here's the situation. You gave the example before of the CEO of the organization that had his assistant create an audio, a video that basically dismissed everybody. If it's easy to make money when times are good. It's easy to look good when times are good. When rubber meets the road, that's when we find out what you're made of, the character of the individual. And so in that situation, the fact that the leader would not step up and say, obviously there's so much going on that's beyond our control, and this is breaking my heart, but we have no choice at this time. If we even want to hope to have some sort of company that we can bring people back to when we come out of this, then we're going to have to let 100,000 people go. I mean, that's a horrific thing. But if the leader isn't willing to do that, then what kind of leader is that? And that question answers itself.
So Sam, we've spoken a lot about culture in this conversation. We've spoken a lot about leadership. Here's where I am, Steve and I are with our thinking. I have no doubt that you will agree with us on this. Again, everyone is saying this, but if ever there was a time for authentic leadership, for leaders to be accountable, for organizations to drive their culture, then that time is now. Because if you do not focus on those things now, then nothing is going to improve. We are not going to get through this, which means you have to make it a strategic objective. So here are 3 tips quickly for anyone who influences culture in an organization. Especially at this time, culture has to be a strategic objective. I know that everyone is hustling, just trying to stay ahead of the slump that's coming. But culture has to be strategic. It has to be in the conversation. It has to be on the agenda. We have to allocate time and focus to it. Secondly, now more than ever, and previously, our main objective always has been to help organizations to embed their values as their culture. And while that continues to be true, there is a new requirement now, that of agility. And if organizations are not agile in this time, they are just not going to survive. Agility has to be an additional value for all organizations, and it doesn't just happen. So go to Amazon and find our book on culture, ours, which is A Culture Turned, and read up how you can consciously influence the culture so that you can drive agility right now. Secondly, leaders at every level, Sam, leaders at every level have to be held accountable for how they behave during this time. They have to have FaceTime live on camera with their folk. They have to speak to their people, and they have to be held accountable. And we have to hold people in the organization accountable at this time. Through all this turmoil, if people do not support our strategic objectives during this difficult time, organizations will not make it. So while everyone is homebound, and while families are cooped up with their kids and homeschooling, we have to rally and continue to deliver the deliverables that we were responsible for anyway. See, Sam, I see that you saw a question there. Go.
Yeah, and so the question is, how do you measure or develop a metric for business to understand the leadership culture? And so here's, if I understand the question correctly, and this is what we do in the accountability index, is we want to look at the culture and accountability in the culture at each level of the organization, looking back up. And so if there, in order to really measure what's going on with the culture, in order to measure whether accountability is abundant or not, there has to be some sort of tool to do that. And so we developed 12 years ago an electronic assessment that quickly does that and gives us that information, because then what we want to do is we want to set the benchmark. Here's where we are today. Now, and some people, you know, some people are in a great place, some people are okay, some people are not in a good place. I really don't care where they are. It does not matter to me. Now, sometimes they take it personal when they find out that their leadership culture, their culture of the organization is not where they want it. Doesn't matter. If long as you know where you are and you know where you want to be, then the whole conversation is about closing that gap. That's what success becomes. And so by creating a standard or a benchmark of where we are today, and then identifying the weak links in the leadership culture or the culture of the organization, and those are two different things, then what happens is then we can measure over time. A year from now, 18 months, we can come back and see where you are. We know what you've been implementing to get there. Now the question is, are you making progress? And if not, why? And if so, then how do we keep it going? And so what I like to do is I like to assess throughout the entire organization. And this is different, Stef, than a UGR stock take. It has a whole different purpose. But this assessment is always going to look back up at leadership, and it's going to tell us whether or not these 10 relational commitments are being kept, and how the leaders are with respect to building and inspiring accountability within the organization.
Sam, I hear you on that. You said that organizational culture and leadership culture are two different things, and I agree with you. When it comes to leadership culture, the culture of leadership, I believe firmly that leaders cause or allow the culture in the organization to exist. So very often, leaders have to become clear on what leader behaviors would create the type of environment that they want. And that is true specifically now. Leaders have to ask themselves, in order for them to be agile as an organization, what leader behaviors will cause and enable agility right now? And I want to go back to what we said in the main session. They have to determine what questions to ask. Sam?
Yes, but I think that when the leader really gets it, I totally agree with what you said. When the leader really gets, where the head goes, the body flows. Everyone looks at the leader. And so what happens is when the leader really gets it and they're living this style, it becomes the model for everyone in the organization. And so what happens is, if it's done right, the leadership culture and the organizational culture will start to come together. And then what happens is you have people at all levels, whether they have a title or not, exhibiting the same characteristics as the leader. And that's when you have this super high performance organization. That's when you have an organization that's going to attract 40 to 100 people to a job opening in a market where there's zero unemployment. That's when you have an organization whose stock value is going to always go up, because it's made of high performance individuals. Leadership exists at all levels. You don't have to send questions back to the top. I can make a decision because I've been taught how to make a decision. That's a very fast, that's a very nimble. Any expression from any leadership book that you've read in the last 2 decades is going to flow in this type of environment.
Sam, here's how leaders can cause a cascade of the right behaviors. Leaders need to demonstrate behaviors that other people would want to emulate. that a leader consciously behaves in a way that will cause other people to want to be more like them. And that thing spreads like wildfire. So there was a good question about this. If there is going to be a new normal, and I'm not the futurist, Graham Codrington is, if the new future is going to be a new normal with new rules, which it will, the shape of organizations are going to change forever. Organizations will never function the same again. Will culture and accountability still be important, Sam, in the new normal? And if so, is it going to change? Are the requirements going to change?
Accountability will never change. Accountability is what accountability is. What's going to change is the need. And quite frankly, it's going to be what determines which organizations succeed and which ones fail. So is it going to be important? Is it going to be critical? You bet it is. It's the determining factor. Look, there's a great, Wayne just said here, the chief exec of my organization has not once reached out personally to staff since the crisis began, despite all the tools you've mentioned. I find it totally disheartening. You bet it is. You bet it is. One of my case studies, Happy State Bank, which is a bank in Texas that's just done amazing things. Every new hire, and this bank is in 53, they have 53 locations. Their market is spread out over about a 10-hour, it probably takes 10 hours to drive from one end to the other end of their market, to put it in perspective. Twice a month, all new hires come into the CEO's office, and the CEO sits down for 90 minutes and talks about what he believes, what they believe as an organization, what their values are, and the expectations that he attaches to those values. It doesn't matter whether you're a teller, whether you're an executive vice president, whatever your title is, you're going to get that 90 minutes with the CEO. And if a leader is not leading, they're not a leader.
Sam, that comment about a CEO not reaching out to their people yet, it's like getting to me.
I know, it's
you're
crazy.
You're a leader of people watching this and you are not reaching out to your people. Like, catch a wake up, for heaven's sake. Like, get a grip. Like, right now, your people need to know that you are there. They don't need to know that you have the answers, but they need to know that you are there, and they need to hear from you, and they need to hear that you have empathy, not through what you say, but through how you say it, and through your demeanor. They need to know that you have empathy, because 2 levels down from you are people with bigger problems than yours. That sounds wrong. I have to clarify that quickly. Leaders have responsibility for huge domains. So a leader is responsible for many households. And when I say that they have bigger problems than yours, what I mean is 2 pay grades down from the CEO are people who are 1 paycheck away from being homeless. And those people just need a voice of reason and a voice of reassurance, even if that voice can't make any promises. I was hosting a panel of a few very brave leaders on an executive team, an exco of a client organization of mine, on the weekend, on Saturday morning. And they were speaking to their folk. And the feedback was that people needed to hear what and Sam, they faced the questions, and they didn't have there were questions like, what's going to happen to my job? The answer is, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen to the organization. But hey, here we are, giving the very best that we can. We will make the best decisions that we can, and we'll keep you posted. That reassurance, honestly, and with empathy, is what people need to be hearing at this time. Shame on leaders who are not speaking to their people at this time.
Exactly, because the definition of leadership is taking the responsibility of the people that you lead. You are responsible for them. You're responsible for their success. You're responsible for them being able to live their life. And because of they're working for you, they're earning a paycheck here. You're hopefully investing in them. You're training them. You're making them better. You're leading them to their potential. That's your job as a leader. And if you see people as a physical resource, if that's what they are to you, then you're not really a leader. You're a leader by title, but you're not a leader in fact. And so true leaders understand that it is forever, every time, about the people they lead. Leadership is never about you, the person with the title. Leadership is about them. And too many leaders are more focused on the bottom line and the stockholders than on the people that they are truly should be honored to be put in a position to lead.